This is how the pile's looking. And today we're continuing our review of the Power 5 series with Book 3, NightRise. And let's see what Pokemon card we have for this episode. Skrelp? I don't actually know how to say this one. Skrelp me pronounce this. I think it's fairly fitting. It kind of matches the book cover actually, see that? Purple and then a little blue in the middle. Oh! I will not lie to you. I know I didn't do the typical introduction, but that was, I'm filming this episode right after the last one, okay? I'm sorry. So to make it up with you, I have this Shrek glass. So my fine glassware here. And so this is me making it up to you. Don't look at the logo. This is me making it up to you, and I'm just going to put it right here. Because it's a top tier item right now. Okie dokie, guys. So we're gonna be reviewing this book here, book 3 of the Power 5 series by Anthony Horowitz, NightRise. So this book review will contain spoilers for the previous 2 books in the series. That's just how I'm doing these book reviews. So spoiler warning for Ravensgate and Evil Star. I will start with a non-spoiler discussion about this book, and then we'll get into light spoilers, and I usually want to say a couple things before heavy spoilers, because just in case you've already read it, and then I can express what I feel about those big moments, you know? So, but let's begin with a non-spoiler discussion. NightRise is very interesting, because what we've seen before in the first 2 books is we've seen, in Ravensgate, we get an introduction to the world, introduction to the supernatural elements and magic, and introduction to the main protagonist, Matthew. And then in the second one, Matthew kind of takes on a little bit more of the role and learns to discover his powers a bit more. And then we also get introduced to another one of the 5 gatekeepers, the 5 kids who are going to defeat the ancient evil, only if they come together. But in this book, we don't continue the story with Matt and Pedro. Okay, so book 1, we get one guy. In book 2, we get the second guy. And then in book 3, we're going to get another one. And then in book 4, we're going to get another one. And then in book 5, we're going to get the 5th gatekeeper. And then it's all going to have to come together. And then that 5th gatekeeper won't actually have too much time to develop. But Anthony Horowitz knew this. And he figured out a way to do it. 2 of the 5 are twins. Jamie and Scott Tyler. And so in the 3rd book, we get introduced to 2 of the 5. And now, with only 2 books to go, there's only one more character to introduce. Pretty good. That's good pacing there. But for this book, it does feel quite different because we're starting with 2 different characters, and immediately the supernatural elements come straight back in. Because Scott and Jamie Tyler, in the previous books, the other 2 characters didn't really know about their superpower or didn't really know how to use their powers. These 2 begin knowing how to use their powers, and they know how to use it very well. They can read each other's minds, and they can do some other stuff too, which makes them very, very potent. But I'm going to leave that as, I'll categorize that as a light spoiler. But anyway, we begin figuring and finding out that they can read each other's minds. You know, that's pretty cool. That's a supernatural element right now. And we also get introduced to a main antagonistic force, and it really brings in because before we've had witches and cults, and then we had corrupt police and businesses, and in here we go full force on the anti-corporate stuff, because NightRise is a massive, pervasive, global corporation that does a lot of bad stuff and is working with the old ones who are now released into the world. And so these are the big bad guys. These are major bad guys. And this is where a lot of the themes in the series come out, which I really resonate with how a lot of corporations and companies are just doing awful stuff and leeching off of humanity, and seeing that the end of the world is nigh, not through the old ones, but through just evil and global warming and humanity just kind of sucking. And that's basically what NightRise Corporation represents. Is NightRise is like, humanity sucks, man is evil, the old ones are just helping us destroy each other faster. Why not benefit? Why not exploit the world and exploit the planet and get the best of what there is left? Because it's going to run out anyway. And again, that's not helping. that's just destroying the planet. That's giving up on hope that we can actually fix the mess we're in, right? Not to get too heavy or anything, but basically, NightRise is this awful corporation who is corrupt and who is trying to destroy the planet and trying to look appeasing and pleasant to the public eye. But they are insane people, filled with insane people who don't care about the world or other people and the environment, filled with selfish individuals that are willing to kidnap and torture children. And that's exactly what they do in this book. That's the opposition that these two twins from California have to deal with. This book is kind of distressing. It's hard to get. I would kind of consider where I'm going like spoiler territory, so let me give a little bit of an overview before we get into spoilers. Again, this book is written just as well, and I feel like the intensity is back up again. Not quite so much as the first story, but it does have some bloodiness at the beginning. It has some themes of abuse. It has some themes of torture in it too, which is a really, really heavy subject. And there's just some really shocking turns, and the dream world is just as weird as it always is. Instead of in the last book where that very ending was crazy, the last third of this book goes hard, okay? And so I feel like the ante is picked up. It's a slightly larger book. We're being introduced to way more characters and has a lot less to do with the characters we've already met. It's a little bit more self-contained in that way, I would say. And then I'd say that the very ending is very sudden. The way it wraps up is really sudden. There's only a few pages, and it basically is like, and they escaped. And then it really just ends quite suddenly. But it really concluded what this book was set out to do. And so that sudden ending just reinforces the fact that this book feels not standalone, but more self-contained than the other books, definitely. Okay, let's get into the light spoiler warnings. I think we can get through this pretty comfortably. Near the beginning of the story, NightRise comes after Jamie and Scott basically stands up for Jamie. He's usually the one in charge. Jamie's even though they're twins, Jamie's like smaller and is kind of like the brother who needs to be looked out after. And Scott basically gets kidnapped and gives Jamie an opportunity to run, and Jamie runs and manages to find someone to help track down Scott. And I won't get into all that, but they have a pretty good dynamic, and it's nice and fairly interesting. We see Jamie having to take on the responsibility and having to be like, okay, Scott, you always looked out for me, now I gotta find you. And there's a lot of distress. Jamie is very distressed. These are two twins that have stuck together. They can read each other's mind. They've been through hardships, and it's really difficult for them to be apart. This book is really hard because it sets up an issue that's really coming to a head in the final book that I'm at. I'm halfway through. Scott gets kidnapped and he gets tortured. He gets tortured by the NightRise Corporation to try and turn them over to his side. And it's just awful to hear the description of what they do to him. It's just sickening, and it's really intense, and it just shows how evil and disgusting this corporation is, and how evil and gross the old ones are. It just really shows how ruthless and brutal and how big of a threat the old ones are, and how that it's just intense. It's intense. It's something that's really difficult to confront, and the characters find it difficult to confront. Not just in this book, but in the books after this also. And you can't help but feel bad for Scott, and when Scott is disillusioned, and it's just difficult. It's hard to say anything about it, but basically this has some strong themes and some gut punches and some hard scenes to read, but it is intense, and the last third has some crazy stuff in it, and it ends abruptly. So that's the end of my discussion for the NightRise. I know that's maybe a little abrupt, but there we go. I'm reflecting the book. Yeah, but I still think this is a really strong offering. It really weighs down the series and makes it more intense and dense, and it introduces a lot of stuff. It introduces 2 more of the 5, and it really sets up the 4th book to be something special and complicated, and this feels like a breakthrough. It feels like the first 3 books are like, and And then the fourth and the fifth book are something else. And they're bringing everything together that we've had. And this is just the final chapter of the beginning of this saga. And this ends abruptly. And what comes next is this crescendo of a bunch of stuff just coming together and struggling to just squirm and figure things out. And this book just has that intensity and abruptness. I feel like placing this just slightly above Evil Star, even though I really loved stuff on that book. I felt like this was more substantial and intense. Yeah, the ending maybe fell a little bit flat, but it's okay because I understand the purpose of it. So I'm gonna give this it just about gets a strong 5 out of 7 for me. Yeah, so just slightly above Evil Star here. Where I'll leave it. Again, it's well written as always. Yeah, I feel like I could maybe go back and forth on Evil Star and NightRise, but I feel like NightRise is just more consistent and more self-contained and more intense. So that's why it's a little bit of a better score. But still, the series has been very solid, between a solid 5 and a solid 6. So it's been really good so far. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. And I'll see you on another day for more book reviews, hopefully. So this has been episode 4, and this has been my Shrek glass. Have a good day.